I'd like to welcome each and every individual to Voices of Integrity podcast for raising funds for nonprofits. Tom Kuntz is a good friend of mine, been a good friend of mine for over 20 years. He helped raise over $100 million for Easter seals. I mean, just the guy's a machine. He's magical. I mean, what he's able to do. And so he went ahead and once showed me the marketing model. And so the marketing model is a fascinating model. Hopefully you all know about the 530 grids for marketing. How do you generate more and better leads? Pre-sales, once you get a lead, what do you do with it? The sale, that's the yes or the no. And servicing, how do you create a raving fan experience? And then client or relationships for life, how do you build lifelong relationships? So with, Anthony's way and what Tony's doing, he's going after large quantity of low contribution. So that's one strategy. It's a good, viable strategy. It's a wonderful strategy. It's really cool. It's a lot of quantity. So if you're doing $5, you can't have a salesperson on it. He can't be talking to every one of the people. So he's going to be using technology to go ahead and leverage himself in doing that. And so in the marketing model, if I can find it, I'm in a different system, so sometimes I have a hard time. Ooh, there it is. Okay. So Tom went ahead and said that up in the right-hand side, the marketing model, there's four. It doesn't matter what you're doing. You can be buying a Maserati and you go through these four steps, these four phases. Or you could go ahead and be buying a piece of gum. Or you could be giving out $100 million, or you could be giving $5. It's all the same. So in phase one, it says, wouldn't it be nice? And it's hard to see. I apologize for that. It's on the bottom here, it's subconscious. The first two are subconscious. Phase three is conscious. Phase four is conscious. So you have phase one and two that are subconscious, phase three that is conscious, phase four is conscious. So in phase one, wouldn't it be nice? And so you're talking about raising funds for nonprofit. A lot of the raising of funds, it's brain science. It's a dopamine hit. People get money. So my dad was a pastor, and so I was raised as a pastor's kid. And as a small young boy, I was, I don't know, 9, 10, 11. I started making money as a kid doing paper routes and selling stuff and doing all kinds of stuff. Pretty industrious little guy. And I had money, and my parents taught me to save money at a very young age. So I saved money. And then they taught me to, be very frugal, so I wouldn't spend money. But then I guess they taught me to give money too. And so when I was, I remember when I was 15 years old, and we were in a Christian school, and I was on the soccer team, and we went and played, we had soccer meets, and we'd travel to the soccer games, and then we stop at McDonald's on the way home. And I love Big Macs. I mean, just loved them, but I wouldn't buy them because fish sandwiches were 30 cents cheaper. So I wouldn't buy it because it's like, it's 30 cents cheaper. I can do it, add extra tartar sauce, I'll be fine. And what's fascinating about that is, as a 15-year-old, I wouldn't spend 30 cents on myself for enjoyment, but I would give hundreds, literally thousands of dollars to the church. Some might call that a cult. No, like, it's fine. It's like, I don't know. I just felt good giving money. So I got a dopamine hit and so I got all this confidence because I'm like, you know what? I don't need it for myself. So I got addicted to being generous as a child. and addicted to delayed gratification, and where truly giving is far more. And so here, when people give, you're activating a dopamine hit. And so when they go ahead, the science behind this is if they are ADHD in this situation, they think they're helping somebody else. And the truth is they are. And it's really not that big a help. Now, they, um, so there's a million people, I think, that are $5, so $5 million. Now, a number of those $5 are going to turn into $50 or $500 or $5,000 or $5 million. So they give a little bit. Once you give a little bit, then you get a dopamine hit, and the brain science is, ooh, that felt good. If it felt good, I bet you'd feel better to give $50 or $500 or $5 million or whatever. It's a science. It's what it is. So their subconscious, wouldn't it be nice to go ahead, and Tom uses, because he's in real estate, Tom uses the real estate. Wouldn't it be nice to own a home? But it's subconscious. And then phase two is because we're growing a family, we're having children. It's still, now there's a justification for my desire. So I started investing into real estate when I was 15 years old. And so, and that's when I learned to combine my love for business with doing good things together. So when I was 15, I had a lot of money because I worked really, really hard, had jobs and businesses and worked. And I mean, that's what I did. And I saved it all, didn't spend it on stuff, just saved it all. So I had a pretty good chunk, and my siblings, they were not as industrious as I am. I have an older brother and 4 younger siblings. They were not as industrious. They didn't work as much to make money, and they didn't save as much, but they were still good. And my dad was a missionary, what they call home mission. And so he was starting a church in the Chicago area. So he'd started a church in Appleton, Wisconsin. And then he left that church, got it up and going, handed it off to a new pastor, and then he started another church. And so in the Chicago area, there's, the prices of property are a lot higher. So my dad, he had a special knack to finding property that was distressed. Something was wrong with the property, and he would figure out how to fix it, and then he would build a church on it. So he found 12 acres, 30 miles west of Chicago, in a little town called Warrenville, Illinois, which is by Wheaton and Naperville, Illinois. And so he found 12 acres, and it was flooded and all kinds of stuff. It wasn't prime property, and he figured out how to engineer all that. So he needed to buy 12 acres. But the church wasn't big enough to be able to do it. So my dad approached us kids and said, "Hey kids, are you interested in investing into real estate?" Well, I'm like, dang, what a great idea. I didn't find out until years later. My mom was terrified. She's like, "You're going to take all Mark's money, and then we're going to lose it in real estate. Then he's going to hate God forever." Well, none of that happened. And so we went ahead and, we went in as partners with the church, 50-50 partners. The church got a great deal. My gracious, did my dad structure it. They came out ahead, but I got a 10% return on my investment, and that gave me enough money to buy a house when my wife and I were married, when we were 23 years old, our first home. And so what I did is I learned how to combine business with helping people. And there's still a church today there that's serving the community as a result of me when I was 15 years old. And so, so then it's because of justification. So you're justifying what you want to do. Then phase 3 is the first time you consciously think of something. So this is the first time you consciously think of something and you say, I could buy a house. So my wife and I, she was 19 when we got married. I was 20 when we got married. We were both in college, working our way through college. She was going for her elementary education degree. I was going for my 3 bachelor's degrees in business. and we were paying our own way through college and everything. But I had saved up so much money in high school that I had enough for, and then I invested that into real estate, and then that paid off. And so as soon as we graduated, I became a loan officer at a mortgage company, 100% straight commission. And the first home that I did was my own home, which was probably the hardest mortgage I ever did because it was 100% straight commission. It was a fascinating story. So we bought a house. We bought a house right out of college because of the money that I had saved. And so, she was 3 months pregnant when we bought that house. She wasn't going to be working outside the home, which put a lot of pressure on me to succeed in straight commission sales because I had no other choice. But I mean, I did have 3 other job options, but I'm like, no, I'd rather die in the jungle than live in the zoo. And so then it's first time, conscious thought where I need to buy this house. Now, I don't know if it's me or my parents, I'm not sure how, but when most 15-year-old boys are thinking about saving for whatever, a car, spending a car, having dates, whatever, I went ahead and said, I'm going to invest into real estate. So I knew at a very young age I was going to invest into real estate, and then it happened. And then you contact the industry. So you contact the industry and you say, okay, I'm interested in buying, I'm interested in buying a house. That's what every realtor wants. They want a hot prospect. But if you're really smart in real estate, you go back to the beginning, you go back, wouldn't it be nice here? And you can accelerate this. You can accelerate this. You can make this happen more. So you can happen faster. So this cycle, this cycle can go ahead and take 4 years, 1 year to get through everything, or it could take 4 months, or it could take 40 years. It could do a whole bunch of things. So there's ways to accelerate this and being able to do it. So when you look at the 530 grid, so need a good work on getting the first emails out for Tony stuff. Do you have the statistics on that, Anita? Do you know how many we were sent out and how many opened and how many clicked?
Yep, I've got them right here.
Go ahead.
We sent out 5,953. We had 1,739 opens and 7,194 clicks.
So, um, so this is the MCAT system. This is the system Life Masteries has. It's a CRM system that they custom built. And so what we did is they have 17 million in the database. They have 200,000, soon to be 300,000 they're sending out. Anita chose a database of 5,953, around 6,000. And she chose within a 50-mile radius of our home where we live. And these are all businesses that we have here. And so of that were 17,000 that went ahead, or 1,700 that opened. And so the open rate was 29%, which is very high. And then the click-through rate, there were 7,000 clicks on it. How can you have 7,000 clicks if you only have 1,700 open? So there's two ways that this can happen. One is somebody can open it, like 6 times each. The other is that they can share it with other people. And so if I send something to you and you share it with other people, the technology doesn't know because it's embedded into your link. The technology doesn't know who you shared it with. It just knows it's your link. And so one of those two things happened. My guess is this is very high. So my guess is this was forwarded to a bunch of other people. We have 1,100 unique ones. So of the 1,700, 1,100. And so that messaging was insane. So great work. Anita on that. That's awesome. So now what we need to do is we need to go ahead and we're gonna in the future we're gonna start building a database, filtering a database, and so these 1,137 people have some interest in the ADHD, and because they wouldn't have clicked otherwise. So what we'll do is we'll start building a super database, is what it's called. And so if you send out 100,000 and you filter that database of people that are interested, you can have 80-90% of those people that'll open every single time. So then we start building a story, and that's going to be box 5 right here. So we identified message targets, we developed and delivered a message, then we went ahead and tracked 100% of the leads, and then we're going to start doing questions, and then we're going to start doing a strategic strike, and then we're going to start doing boxes here. And then we'll probably, Anita, my guess is grouping people and messages together based on Tony's Life GPS and the different groups there, Anita. We would go ahead and create a landing, have Life Masteries create a landing page, and it'd say to have the different groups so they can opt in. And then based on what they click, Anita, they would go ahead and then fall into that group so we can have in MCAT specific groups of specific people. So I can work with you, Anita, on that and kind of show you how to do that. So that's going to be somewhere in the here. So you would go ahead and set it up here where Tony would have his folder, and then there'd be subfolders underneath the folders. And so somewhere in here, he'd have his own folder. And then underneath the folders, there would be different categories. Are you tracking this, Anita?
Yeah.
Good. So based on the grouping of the people messages, if you can get people grouped in a really tight, so they all the people in that group have a similar interest, then your messaging is going to be far more effective because you can bring down your messaging specific to that. And then on each phase, what we discovered here is if you go ahead and tell stories, if you tell stories here on 2, 1, that accelerates the 1 to become 2. And I learned this from my middle daughter when she was 15 years old. Now she's 30. So 15 years ago, I was talking to her best friend's dad, and we were talking, and I said to him, I said, yeah, it seems like the girls are more interested in boys than their older siblings were. So she's the middle of 7. And Noelle was the youngest of all of 6 or 7 kids. And he laughed and he said, yeah, I think I know why that is. And I said, really? And he's like, yeah. And I said, why is that? He said, I think the younger kids are more interested in relationships, the opposite sex, than the older kids because they see the older kids having relationships. And so it activates literally the hormones in them. It activates the hormones in them so they become more interested in those relationships at a younger age. I'm like, dang, never thought of that before. And so that same thing can be applied to business. And so in real estate, if they take my story and how I started investing into real estate when I was 15 years old, that will activate other 10, 11, 12, 15-year olds to say, wow, if Mark can do it, I can do it. And so what we want to do is this is where we go ahead and connect this. So, all right, so this is where, and so this, Tony, will all go on behind the scenes. You just need to know big picture. I mean, because you've been in business, you know all of this kind of this. The 530 grid is what gives us the map, though. So that makes it easier to track. So what we'll do is when people go ahead and give money, we'll start sharing stories, which is box 12. these stories then activate the marketing and the pre-sales and the sales to help accelerate that process so it happens sooner. And so Tom does a better job on this. It's really early there in the morning, so he's in the Pacific time zone, so it's like 4 o'clock in the morning there. But it'd be cool to get him on. And Nora, if you could go ahead and schedule, check with Tom and see if he's got some availability to schedule. I'd like to introduce him to Tony, and then what we would do is have him talk about some of the ways that he raised funds, like $100 million. How did he raise $100 million for, for Easter seals?
Okay.
And then we'll go through the list of all the things that I've learned, like when he was. So I'll go through it. We'll have a list for him of all the stories that he's told, over the last 20 years. And I'll remind him of those stories, and he can talk about those stories, because I think those stories will be really powerful for Tony. So we take the stories. Box 12 is like Miracle Grow. And it makes your marketing, your pre-sales, and your sales a lot more. And there's ways that we can go ahead and find out from the people who give $5. There's follow-up strategies that can be done on those to find out which one of those are likely to give $50 or $500 or $5,000 or $5 million. And so there's people in that group that probably could give $5 million. So it's finding those people and nurturing those people. So good work, Anita. Appreciate you. You and your team did awesome on that. Tony, is there anything else you wanted to cover today?
No, we've been busy. We've been trying to wrap up the website. We got somebody, an IT person to help, so hopefully she's moving along. We did a podcast that would be very helpful for everybody to watch. It's with Jeff Copper. Jeff Copper is an outstanding ADHD coach. He has his own podcast and radio channel for 30 years now. But he tells his story, but he has a new theory of motivation based on Dr. Barkley I mentioned last week was the #1 scientific mind behind ADHD. His whole theory, he's copywritten and captured it slightly differently. So we went through that with him. And then we did a number of videos that were rolling out. A restaurant chain here called Shuck and Shack. They physically will sell orange hearts for $5 in their three of their chains. So we did a video to kick that off, and they've raised $4,000 or $5,000 for us in 2 years. So they're going to do it in this time for the whole month of February. Well, Random Acts of Kindness Week is February 14th to the 20th. They're still going to do it for the whole month. So we'll see what we end up with that. But and we're making some marketing materials for all of that stuff. And then there's another thing I'll mention to you guys is that there's a great book out there by another person I know. It's called The Executive Function Playbook. Michael McLeod is the founder of Grow Now ADHD. He created this playbook, and it's really cool. So which I mentioned last week, there's 4 parts to this executive function brain. And the idea is to find which part is not working. Where's the impairment? All right, so he goes through this, and this is really written for how to make kids independent as they grow up and with ADHD. So it's really written for a group that we're working with. So I bought a bunch that I'm going to share with the families that we're personally taking care of, and anybody else that we come along with. So we're about almost 70 families now that we've helped. I'm working every day with calls for families, and everyone has their own story. It's pretty touching. This weekend, we're going to meet with a mom here that's coming into Carolina Beach, and she has a son who was suicidal, and he was put in a hospital to get some help. And then she has a younger child that has ADHD too. So we're going to chat with her, see how we can help them out. So every day there's somebody reaching out, which is great. The message is getting out. And we sponsored our 3rd child personally from the charity. He's a little boy, 7 years old, from South Carolina. So pretty cool. I mean, we're building it. It's getting there, and
Right.
it's coming together. So
Right.
this $5 will be important for us. $5 is would it's $5.50 for a Starbucks. That's the lowest amount you could spend on a coffee. So would you forgo your coffee today
Right.
and give $5 towards Anthony's Way to Road the Kindness and helping kids with ADHD and learning challenges? That's the
Right.
idea. So
Nice.
anyway, we're getting our markets a lot of build because we had to start all over with the IT piece, and so we think we'll be done this week. And we got at least three community walks that we're doing. One in Miami with an ADHD influencer that's probably going to pull together her team. One here in Carolina, in North Carolina, and one in Hershey, PA. So it'll be
Nice.
physical walks in February, all around our Walk a Mile for Kindness and ADHD, which is Anthony's Memorial Walk. So it's cool.
Nice. Nice. Anita, did you get the name of the book?
I
Yeah.
got the author, but not the name of the book.
Okay. It's called the Executive Function Playbook.
Executive
Function Playbook.
Function
It's on Amazon. It's like
Playbook.
$29, and by Michael McLeod. And
So
we've
if
done
you can,
go ahead.
Anita, if you can go ahead and have Rosanna order that for me, so anything that I
You'll
see that's broken into four, Tony, often it connects back into the personalities.
absolutely.
And
Yeah.
so that can actually be built into the Life GPS program to where anybody that does the 17-second personality test on Life GPS, then that can be programmed to direct them to resources or buying a book or whatever it is.
Sure.
And so I'm very interested in having, because that's kind of my theory, is that it's connected back into the personalities and what it is. And my experience with any type of, disability, I think we all have disabilities, every one of us do. And so some are, and so my experience is that when we're low in one area, we're really high in another area.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
And so that strength can become a weakness. And so having all of that, so that's awesome. The book, we'll get that, definitely look into that.
Yeah, and the power in this is that it goes through like there's four: self-awareness, self-regulation, self-motivation, and self-evaluation. So at some point in time, Anthony fell into each one of these. Early on, when he lost, self-evaluation was your self-talk, how you talk to yourself, what you say, why won't people be my friend? Okay, that's you don't know why, and that's the self-evaluation. That takes your self-esteem down. But then he struggled with self-awareness. So like, we tell him to clean up his bathroom every morning. He wasn't self-aware that you could put notes on, you could do all this stuff. But the idea here is that when his mom would go in and talk about and collaborate, talk about, hey, let's put your stuff here, and that would work for him. Okay. And
right.
then the biggest challenge though is with these kids that have ADHD is the self-regulation. That's where the impulsiveness comes in. And you have to figure out then there's different impulsivenesses, and challenge that he had was in the relationship that he had. So but there's technology. Whole idea behind Michael McLeod's thinking and what Russell Barkley talks about is that cut off all the technology for these kids because it only muddies up. Social media should be gone. Any type of game stuff should be gone because the minute they don't know how to stop, and you have to cut them off, and it'll be hell, as he puts it, for 3 weeks until the child realizes they don't need it. And
yeah, it's an addiction. It's crazy.
It is. Yeah.
With Jonathan, his death, I don't know, probably 70% of it was alcohol.
Yeah. Yeah.
And 20, he was 30 years old, but 20% of it was gaming.
Yeah.
I mean, that alcohol, gaming, and then a love for guns, not dealing with stuff. It's a deadly, it is a deadly combination.
Yeah, it is. So so the goal here is to figure out where the impairment is. And most kids have, like you said, some are worse than others in these areas. The idea is find the impairment and then work to fix it with a coach or whatever you need, or make sure the accommodations are there for school. So
right. No, that's good stuff. That's good
Yeah.
stuff. Well,
Yep.
keep up
All
the
right.
good work, sir. Appreciate it. Great
Thank you,
catching up
guys.
with you.
Thank you, everybody. Nita, thank you,
I
Nora.
have one more question.
Yeah.
So Anthony, you were talking about like the podcast that you have.
Yep.
One of the newest features on our Life GPS is that we're actually putting podcasts on the Life GPS channels.
Yep.
So, like, Mark, do you think it would be possible that we can get some of Tony's podcasts and put it on his channel
You have
for
a
him?
direct, I gave you the link. I could send it to you again, but
Okay.
all of them on there. So for example, like I'm going to do one on exercise coming up here next week. So we're trying to do one every week. And
Okay.
the power, Jeff Copper kicked January off for this is our second season. But like last season, we did 23 episodes. They're all out there. So maybe put the podcast channel in and then they can go find what they need. Because we did an ADHD summit last year and we had the top 8 speakers come together in the ADHD space to talk about their journey or talk about specific topics. And the title for that session was the realities of ADHD. Life is better with you. We want kids to know, and it was directed at parents. We want kids to know that life is better with them, so that they don't deal with some of the challenges. And how can we help them? And so it was really powerful. And we had 250 people come. That was our first summit, so that's pretty cool.
Wow. That is awesome. That is awesome. Thanks, Tony. Have a great
All
weekend.
right, all the best to you guys. Anita, thank you. If you need that, please send me a note. I'll send you the link again, and we
Okay.
can get some podcasts out there. Thank
All
you.
right.
All right,
Okay.
all the best.
Sounds
Thanks.
good.
All right.
Thanks a lot.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.